She thought marrying into wealth meant security, until her billionaire fiancé threw her out the night she told him she was pregnant. Abandoned, broke, and carrying his child, Scarlett Hayes made a choice that would shake the city to its core. She married his deadliest enemy, a mafia boss who didn't promise her love. He promised her revenge. This is the story of a woman who lost everything and came back as a queen no one would ever dare cross again. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. But the penthouse smelled like expensive cologne and fresh lies. Scarlett Hayes stood in the marble foyer of Victor Langford's downtown high-rise, holding a pregnancy test in her trembling hand. The second pink line had appeared 3 minutes ago. She'd stared at it in the bathroom of a coffee shop 2 blocks away, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might pass out right there on the tile floor. She'd walked here in a daze, clutching the test in her coat pocket like it was made of glass. Now she stood in front of the man she loved, the man she was supposed to marry in 6 weeks, and watched his face shift from confusion to something colder. "You're what?" Victor stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, backlit by the glow of 1,000 lights. He looked like he always did, perfect. Tailored suit, dark hair swept back, jaw sharp enough to cut, but his eyes had gone flat. "Pregnant?" Scarlett whispered. "I'm pregnant, Victor." She'd imagined this moment 100 different ways. In her head, he'd smiled. He'd pulled her close, kissed her forehead, told her everything would be okay. They'd figure it out together. They always did. Instead, he set down his whiskey glass and stared at her like she'd just told him she'd torched his car. "How far along?" 6 weeks, maybe 7. "And you're sure it's mine?" The words hit her like a slap. She actually flinched. "What?" I said, "Are you sure?" "But I heard you." Her voice cracked. "How can you even ask me that?" Victor exhaled through his nose, that same controlled breath he used during board meetings when someone said something stupid. "Scarlett, don't be dramatic. It's a reasonable question. We've been together for 2 years. I've never even looked at another man." "Fine." He waved a hand dismissively. "Then yes, you're pregnant. Congratulations." She waited for more. For anything. He just stood there, staring out at the city like she wasn't even in the room. "Victor, say something." "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. That you're happy? That we'll figure this out? That—" Her voice broke. "That you still want to marry me?" He turned then, and the look on his face made her stomach drop. "Scarlett." He said her name like it exhausted him. "We need to be realistic." Realistic about what? About timing, about optics. He crossed the room, hands in his pockets, cool and composed. "The Langford-Chen merger is happening in 3 months. My engagement to Marianne Chen is part of that deal. You know this." Scarlett felt the floor tilt beneath her. "Your engagement to— What are you talking about? You're engaged to me." That was before. Before what? Before this became complicated. She stared at him, unable to process the words coming out of his mouth. "Victor, we've been planning our wedding. The invitations are already printed. I'll handle it." "You'll handle it?" She laughed, but it came out strangled. "You'll handle throwing me away like I'm some kind of— Don't make this harder than it has to be." "Harder than it has to be?" Her voice rose. "I'm carrying your child." Which is exactly why we need to handle this quietly. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook. Actually pulled out a checkbook, like this was a business transaction. "I'll make sure you're taken care of, financially. You can go wherever you want. California, maybe. I'll set you up in a condo, cover medical expenses, everything. I don't want your money. I want you." "That's not possible anymore." "Why? Because of some merger? Because of Marianne Chen? Because you don't fit into my life anymore." He said it so simply, like he was explaining the weather. "Marianne comes from the right family. She understands the world I operate in. She's— What I'm not?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Scarlett felt something crack open inside her chest. "I loved you." "I know." "Do you? Because you're standing here talking about me like I'm a stock you're liquidating." "Scarlett," his voice softened, but only slightly. "You're a good person. You deserve someone who can give you the life you want, That's just not me. It was you 3 hours ago. 3 hours ago, things were different. She looked down at the pregnancy test still clutched in her hand. The plastic was warm from her grip. What do you want me to do with this baby? His jaw tightened. That's your decision. Our decision? No. He shook his head. I'm out, completely. If you decide to keep it, that's on you. I'll provide financial support, but that's where my involvement ends. No name on the birth certificate, no public acknowledgement, nothing. You're a coward. I'm a realist. You're a coward, she repeated, louder this time. You're throwing me away because I'm not useful anymore. Think whatever you want. He set the checkbook on the marble counter. There's $50,000 in there to start. Let me know where you land and I'll have my lawyer draw up an agreement. I don't want your agreement. Then what do you want? I want you to look at me and tell me you don't love me. He met her eyes, held her gaze, and said absolutely nothing. That silence was the worst part. Scarlett felt the tears coming, hot and furious. She refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. She turned toward the doors. Scarlett. She stopped, but didn't turn around. Take the money. Don't make this harder on yourself. She walked out without another word, leaving the checkbook untouched on the counter. The elevator ride down felt like falling. Scarlett stood in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, staring at her reflection in the polished steel doors. She looked small, pale, lost, like someone she didn't recognize. The doors opened on the ground floor and she stepped out into the lobby. The night doorman nodded at her. Thomas, who always smiled when she arrived, who'd seen her come and go 100 times with Victor's arm around her waist. Evening, Miss Hayes. She couldn't answer, just nodded and pushed through the glass doors into the cold. The city felt louder than usual. Taxis honked. People shouted into phones. Somewhere a siren wailed. Scarlett walked without direction, her heels clicking against the pavement. She didn't know where she was going, didn't know what came next. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend, Nina. How'd it go? Is he excited? Scarlett stared at the screen until it blurred. Then she turned the phone off and kept walking. 3 days later, she got the first eviction notice. Scarlett had been staying in the apartment Victor paid for, a sleek one-bedroom in a building she could never afford on her gallery assistant salary. She'd assumed she had time to figure things out. She was wrong. The notice was taped to her door when she came home from work. Lease terminated, effective immediately. Building management requested she vacate within 72 hours. She called Victor. It went straight to voicemail. She called again, same thing. On the third try, someone answered, but it wasn't him. Mr. Langford's office. I need to speak to Victor. Mr. Langford is unavailable. May I take a message? Tell him it's Scarlett. Tell him I got an eviction notice and I need Miss Hayes. The assistant's voice turned cold. Mr. Langford has requested that all future communication go through his attorney. I'm emailing you the contact information now. Wait, I just need... The line went dead. Scarlett stood in the middle of her soon-to-be former living room and realized just how thoroughly he'd erased her. The apartment, the credit cards, the life she thought they were building. Gone. She had $300 in her personal checking account, no family. Her parents had died in a car accident when she was 19 and she'd been on her own ever since. No savings, no backup plan, just a baby growing inside her and a city that suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. Nina showed up that night with 2 suitcases and a bottle of wine she didn't let Scarlett drink. You're staying with me, Nina announced, dragging the suitcases inside. No arguments. I can't. You absolutely can. My couch is surprisingly comfortable, and I make excellent breakfasts. Nina grabbed Scarlett's hands. We'll figure this out. Scarlett wanted to believe her. But Nina lived in a studio apartment in a building with a broken elevator and a landlord who barely fixed anything. There wasn't room for one person, let alone 2. I'll find something, Scarlett said. I just need a few days. Take all the time you need. But time wasn't the problem. Money was. Scarlett worked at a small art gallery in Chelsea, making just enough to cover groceries and student loan payments when Victor wasn't paying for everything else. Now, with rent to think about, medical bills coming, a baby on the way, the math didn't work. She spent the next week applying for every job she could find. Assistant positions, admin roles, retail, anything. But her resume was thin and the questions always came, why are you leaving your current position? What's your availability? Where do you see yourself in 6 months? She couldn't tell them the truth, that she'd be visibly pregnant in 6 months, that she'd need maternity leave, that she was desperate. So she lied, and they saw through it every time. 2 weeks after Victor threw her out, Scarlett saw the announcement. She was walking past a newsstand when the headline caught her eye. Langford-Chen merger finalized. Victor Langford to wed Marianne Chen in spring ceremony. There was a photo. Victor in a tuxedo, Marianne in a white gown, both of them smiling at some charity gala. She was beautiful, tall, elegant, poised. Everything Scarlett wasn't. Scarlett bought the paper with shaking hands and read the article on a bench 2 blocks away. The union represents one of the largest corporate mergers in recent history, joining the Langford family's real estate empire with the Chen family's international holdings. Sources close to the couple describe the relationship as both a personal and professional partnership. Personal partnership. Scarlett crumpled the paper and threw it in the trash. That night, she stood in Nina's bathroom and stared at her reflection. Her face looked thinner, tired. There were dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. She put a hand on her stomach. Still flat, still invisible. But she could feel it, the tiny weight of a future she didn't know how to hold. I'm going to protect you, she whispered. I don't know how, but I will. The bathroom door creaked open. Nina poked her head in. You okay? Yeah. Scarlett wiped her eyes. Just tired. Come eat. I made pasta. They sat on the floor of Nina's studio, eating spaghetti out of mismatched bowls, and for a moment Scarlett let herself pretend everything was okay. It wasn't. The offer came 3 weeks later, in the form of a man in a black suit. Scarlett was leaving the gallery after a long shift when she noticed him. Tall, broad-shouldered, standing beside a sleek black car like he'd been waiting. He didn't look like he belonged on this street. Too polished, too still. Miss Hayes? She stopped. Do I know you? No, but I work for someone who'd like to meet you. I'm not interested. You haven't heard the offer yet. I don't care what the offer is. He smiled faintly. Mr. Moretti thought you might say that. He asked me to give you this. He handed her a business card, heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Dante Moretti. No title, no company, just a name and a phone number. Who's Dante Moretti? The man's smile widened. Someone who can help you. Help me with what? With your situation. He nodded toward her stomach, still flat, still hidden beneath her coat, and Scarlett's blood ran cold. How do you know about that? Mister, Moretti knows a lot of things. He also knows Victor Langford left you with nothing. He'd like to change that. Why? That's a conversation you'll need to have with him. The man opened the car door. He's waiting. 5 minutes of your time. That's all he's asking. Scarlett looked at the card in her hand. Every instinct told her to walk away. But desperation was louder than instinct. 5 minutes, she said. She got in the car. They drove to a restaurant she'd never heard of, small, unmarked, tucked into a side street in Little Italy. The kind of place that didn't have a sign, just a red door and a man standing outside who nodded when they arrived. Inside, the lights were low. The tables were empty except for one in the back corner where a man sat alone. Dante Moretti. He looked younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe. Dark hair, dark eyes, a face that could have been handsome if it wasn't so unreadable. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe, and he didn't stand when she approached. Miss Hayes. His voice was quiet, controlled. Sit. She sat. He poured her a glass of water from a crystal pitcher. You're probably wondering why I brought you here. The thought crossed my mind. I'll be direct. I know what Victor did to you. I know you're pregnant. I know you have no money, no family, and nowhere to go. He leaned back in his chair. I also know you're too proud to take his pity cash, which means you're running out of options fast. And you want to help me out of the goodness of your heart? No. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I want to help you because it benefits me. How? Victor Langford humiliated you, threw you away like garbage. I imagine that makes you angry. What's your point? My point is that I can give you everything he took away. Protection, security, a future for your child. He paused. In exchange, you give me something I want, which is revenge. The word hung in the air between them. Scarlett's pulse quickened. What kind of revenge? The kind that destroys a man's pride. Dante leaned forward. Victor Langford thinks he's untouchable. He thinks he can discard people without consequences. I want to show him he's wrong. And how exactly do I fit into that? You marry me. Scarlett laughed. She couldn't help it. You're insane. I'm serious. You want me to marry you, a complete stranger? Yes. Why? Because it will hurt him. Dante's voice didn't rise, but something sharp flickered in his eyes. Victor threw you away to marry into power. Imagine how it'll feel when he sees you on my arm, when he realizes the woman he discarded is now under my protection, when your child, his child, carries my name instead of his. Scarlett stared at him. You're talking about using me as a weapon. I'm talking about giving you a choice. Dante pushed a folder across the table. And here is a contract. You marry me. You live in my home. You let me claim your child as mine. In return, I provide for you, fully. No limits. Medical care, security, anything you need. Your son grows up safe, protected, and wealthy. And if I say no, then you walk out that door and we never speak again. He met her eyes. But we both know you're not going to say no. You don't know anything about me. I know you're desperate. I know you're terrified. And I know you'd do anything to protect that baby. He tapped the folder. This is the best offer you're going to get. Scarlett's hands shook as she opened the folder. Inside was a contract, pages and pages of legal language she barely understood, but the numbers were clear: a monthly allowance, a house, medical coverage, education funds, everything she didn't have. What's the catch? She asked. No catch, just terms. You play the role of my wife in public. You don't ask questions about my business, and you don't leave until I say the arrangement is over. How long? Until Victor is destroyed. And then? Then you're free to go, with enough money to start over anywhere you want. Scarlett looked at the contract, at the man across from her, at the impossible choice she was being offered. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow night. Dante stood. My driver will take you home. If you decide yes, call the number on the card. If you decide no, burn it. He walked out without another word, leaving her alone in the empty restaurant with a contract that felt like a deal with the devil. But Scarlett didn't sleep that night. She lay on Nina's couch, staring at the ceiling, turning the decision over and over in her mind. Marrying a stranger, a dangerous stranger, a man who wanted to use her as a pawn in some revenge plot against Victor. It was insane. But so was being homeless and pregnant with no way out. She thought about the baby growing inside her, about the life she wanted to give him, about the fact that Victor had walked away without looking back, and she was supposed to just, what? Suffer in silence? Struggle alone? Why should she? At 3 a.m, she made her decision. She picked up the phone and dialed the number on Dante Moretti's card. He answered on the first ring. I'll do it, Scarlett said. There was a pause, then, Good. I'll send a car in the morning. One condition. What? You protect my son. No matter what happens between you and Victor, my son stays safe. Done. I mean it. If anything happens to him, nothing will happen to him. Dante's voice was firm. You have my word. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. Okay, Scarlett whispered. I'll see you tomorrow. She hung up and sat in the dark, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life, or the smartest decision she'd ever make. The car arrived at 7 a.m. Scarlett stood on the curb outside Nina's building with a single suitcase, watching the black sedan pull up like something out of a movie she didn't want to be in. The same driver from yesterday stepped out, opened the back door without a word, and waited. Nina grabbed her arm. You don't have to do this. Yeah, I do. No, you don't. We'll figure something else out. I can pick up extra shifts. We can. Nina. Scarlett turned to face her friend. There is no other way. Not one that keeps my baby safe. Safe from what? You're trading one dangerous situation for another. Maybe, but at least this one comes with a roof over my head. Nina's eyes filled with tears. I don't trust him. I don't either, but I trust Victor even less. Scarlett pulled her into a hug. I'll call you, I promise. If anything happens, anything, you call me and I'll come get you. I don't care where you are. I know. Scarlett pulled away, grabbed her suitcase, and got into the car before she could change her mind. The driver closed the door, sealing her inside with the smell of leather and expensive cologne that wasn't hers. As they pulled away from the curb, she watched Nina standing on the sidewalk, getting smaller and smaller until she disappeared completely. The drive took 30 minutes. They left the cramped streets of Nina's neighborhood and headed north, past the park, past the museum, into a part of the city Scarlett had only seen in magazines. The buildings got taller, the streets got cleaner. The people walking their dogs wore coats that cost more than her monthly salary. They turned onto a tree-lined street and stopped in front of a limestone townhouse that looked like it belonged in a different century. 5 stories. Black iron gates. Windows that gleamed in the early morning light. The driver opened her door. Mr. Moretti is waiting inside. Scarlett stepped out onto the sidewalk and stared up at the house. It was beautiful, intimidating, the kind of place she'd walked past 1,000 times and never imagined stepping inside. The front door opened before she reached it. Dante stood in the doorway, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked different in daylight, less shadowy, more real. He studied her for a moment, then stepped aside. Welcome home. The words felt wrong in his mouth. This wasn't home. This was a transaction. Scarlett walked inside. The foyer was all marble and dark wood, with a staircase that curved up to the second floor and a chandelier that probably cost more than Nina's entire apartment. Everything smelled like polish and money. Your room is on the 3rd floor, Dante said, closing the door behind her. I'll have someone bring your things up. I only have 1 suitcase. Then I'll have someone buy you more things. I don't need... You're going to be my wife. You need to look the part. He started up the staircase without waiting for her to follow. Come on, I'll show you around. Scarlett trailed behind him, her footsteps echoing on the marble. The 2nd floor had a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a sitting room she couldn't imagine anyone actually sitting in. Everything looked expensive and untouched, like a museum exhibit. The 3rd floor was quieter. Dante stopped in front of a set of double doors and pushed them open. This is yours. The bedroom was bigger than Nina's entire studio. King-size bed, walk-in closet, windows overlooking the street. There was even a fireplace, though Scarlett couldn't imagine ever using it. The bathroom's through there, Dante said, nodding toward another door. If you need anything, there's a phone on the nightstand. Dial 0 and someone will answer. Someone? I have staff. Housekeeper, cook, security. They know not to bother you unless you ask. Scarlett set her suitcase down on the floor. The room felt too big, too empty. Where's your room? 4th floor. So we're not... No. He met her eyes. This is a business arrangement. I don't expect anything from you except what's in the contract. She didn't know if that made her feel better or worse. The wedding is in 3 days, Dante continued. I've arranged for someone to bring dresses for you to choose from. We'll sign the papers at City Hall, then have a small reception here. Nothing elaborate. 3 days? Scarlett's stomach twisted. That's not enough time to... But it's plenty of time. I don't believe in long engagements. I don't even know you. You don't need to know me. You just need to stand next to me and sign your name. He checked his watch. I have a meeting in an hour. Make yourself comfortable. If you get hungry, the kitchen's on the 1st floor. He walked out, leaving her alone in a bedroom that felt like it belonged to someone else. Scarlett sat down on the edge of the bed and tried to remember how to breathe. 3 days. In 3 days, she'd be married to a man she didn't know, living in a house that didn't feel real, playing a role she didn't understand. She put a hand on her stomach and whispered, I'm doing this for you. Remember that. The baby didn't answer. Babies never did. Uh, the dresses arrived that afternoon. Scarlett was sitting in the library, the only room that felt remotely comfortable, when a woman in her 50s knocked on the doorframe. "Miss Hayes, I'm Elena. I manage the house." She smiled warmly, the first genuine smile Scarlett had seen since she walked through the door. "Mr. Moretti asked me to help you with the wedding arrangements." "There's not much to arrange, is there? He said it's just signing papers." "Even simple weddings need a dress." Elena gestured toward the sitting room. "I've brought a few options. Would you like to see them?" Scarlett followed her into the sitting room, where 3 garment bags hung on a portable rack. Elena unzipped the first one, revealing a white dress that looked like it cost more than Scarlett made in a year. "This one is classic. Simple lines. Very elegant." It was beautiful. Scarlett hated it. "Do you have anything that's not white?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "You don't want a white dress?" "I'm pregnant and marrying a stranger for revenge. White feels a little ironic." To her credit, Elena didn't flinch. She just nodded and unzipped the second bag. "How about this one?" The dress was champagne-colored, with delicate lace sleeves and a fitted waist. It was understated, elegant, the kind of thing someone wore when they weren't trying to pretend this was a fairy tale. "I like it," Scarlett said quietly. "Good. I'll have it altered to fit you perfectly." Elena zipped the bag back up. "Is there anything else you need? Shoes, jewelry?" "I don't know. What does a fake bride need?" Elena's expression softened. "The same things a real bride needs, something that makes her feel strong." Scarlett looked at the older woman, really looked at her. "How long have you worked for him?" 10 years. "Is he—" Scarlett hesitated. "Is he a good person?" Elena considered the question carefully. "Mr. Moretti is a complicated man, but he's fair, and he keeps his promises." She folded the garment bags over her arm. "If he told you he'd protect you, he will. Even if it's just because it suits him? Does it matter why, as long as he does it?" Scarlett didn't have an answer for that. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Scarlett barely saw Dante. He left early in the morning and came back late at night, always in a suit, always with his phone pressed to his ear. When they did cross paths, their conversations were brief and transactional. "The photographer will be here at noon." "Okay. Wear something formal for the reception." "Fine. Do you have any dietary restrictions?" "No." It felt less like preparing for a wedding and more like preparing for a board meeting. On the morning of the 3rd day, Scarlett woke up with her stomach in knots. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Victor's face, the coldness in his eyes when he'd told her she didn't fit into his life anymore. She showered, dried her hair, and stared at herself in the mirror. Her face looked thinner, paler. She didn't look like a bride. She looked like someone playing dress-up in someone else's life. Elena knocked on the door at 10. "It's time to get ready." The dress fit perfectly. The alterations had transformed it into something that actually looked like it belonged on her body. Elena helped her with her hair, pinning it up in a simple twist, and handed her a pair of pearl earrings. "Something borrowed," Elena said softly. Scarlett put them on with shaking hands. At 11:30, Dante knocked on her door. He wore a dark suit, no tie, and he looked at her the same way he looked at everything else, calm, detached, unreadable. "You look good," he said. "Thanks." "The car's waiting." They rode to City Hall in silence. Scarlett stared out the window, watching the city blur past, and wondered if this was what drowning felt like. Quiet. Inevitable. No way to stop it once it started. City Hall was gray and bureaucratic, nothing like the church wedding she'd imagined with Victor. They signed papers in a small office with fluorescent lighting and a clerk who looked bored. Dante's signature was sharp and precise. Scarlett's hand shook so badly she could barely write her name. "Congratulations," the clerk said, stamping the document. "You're now legally married." Legally married. Scarlett felt like she might throw up. They drove back to the townhouse, where a small reception had been set up in the dining room. There were flowers, white roses, elegant and cold, a small cake, champagne she wasn't allowed to drink, and people. Not many, maybe 20. Men in expensive suits who shook Dante's hand and eyed Scarlett like they were trying to figure out what she was worth. A few women in designer dresses who smiled politely but didn't introduce themselves. Scarlett stood beside Dante, playing the role she'd agreed to play, and felt like a stranger in her own skin. "Smile," Dante murmured under his breath. She smiled. A man approached, older, silver-haired, with eyes that missed nothing. He clapped Dante on the shoulder. "Congratulations. Didn't think I'd see you settle down." "Things change, Marco." Marco turned to Scarlett. "And who's the lucky girl?" "Scarlett," Dante said. "My wife." The word sounded strange coming out of his mouth. Marco studied her for a long moment. "You picked an interesting time to get married." "Why's that?" "Heard Victor Langford's engagement is all over the news. Marrying that Chen girl next month." Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Funny timing, don't you think?" Dante's expression didn't change. "I don't pay attention to Victor Langford." "Sure you don't." Marco raised his glass. "To new beginnings." They toasted. Scarlett drank water and tried not to look as uncomfortable as she felt. The reception lasted 2 hours. By the time the last guest left, Scarlett's face hurt from fake smiling. Dante loosened his collar and poured himself a drink. "You did well." I stood there and nodded. It wasn't exactly hard. "You'd be surprised how many people can't even do that." He took a sip of whiskey. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, the real work starts." "What real work?" "Making sure Victor knows you're mine now." The possessiveness in his voice made her skin crawl. "I'm not yours. I'm just wearing your ring." In his eyes, that's the same thing. Dante set down his glass. "You wanted protection. I'm giving it to you. But protection comes with conditions." "Which are?" "You go where I go. You smile when I tell you to smile. You let the world see that you're not the broken girl he threw away." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "You let him see that you've moved on to someone more powerful than he'll ever be." Scarlett met his eyes. "And what do you get out of this?" The satisfaction of watching him realize he made a mistake. "That's it? Just satisfaction?" Dante's jaw tightened. "Victor Langford destroyed something that mattered to me. Now I'm going to destroy something that matters to him." "What did he destroy?" "That's not your concern. If I'm part of this, it is my concern." "No." Dante's voice turned cold. "Your concern is playing your role and keeping your mouth shut about everything else. That's the deal." Scarlett wanted to push back, wanted to demand answers, but she was tired and pregnant and standing in a house that didn't feel like hers, married to a man who scared her more than she wanted to admit. "Fine," she said quietly. "I'll play my role." "Good." Dante turned toward the door. "Get some sleep. We have a gala to attend tomorrow night." "A gala?" "The Langford Foundation charity event. Victor will be there with his fiancée, so will we." Scarlett's stomach dropped. "I'm not ready to see him." "You don't have to be ready. You just have to show up." Dante paused in the doorway. "Wear something that makes him regret every choice he's ever made." He walked out, leaving Scarlett alone in a dining room full of wilting roses and half-empty champagne glasses. She sank into a chair and put her head in her hands. Tomorrow night, she'd have to face Victor, the man who'd thrown her away, the father of her child who wanted nothing to do with either of them. And she'd have to do it on the arm of a man who wanted to use her pain as a weapon. Scarlett closed her eyes and tried to remember who she'd been before all of this. Before Victor, before Dante, before she'd become a pawn in someone else's game. She couldn't. That person felt like a ghost. The next day, Elena brought her a dress. It was deep emerald green with a neckline that was just low enough to be daring and a silhouette that skimmed her body in all the right ways. Scarlett stared at it hanging on the back of her door and felt her heart race. "Mr. Moretti chose it himself," Elena said. "He has good taste. He wants me to look like I belong to him." "Is that so different from what Victor wanted?" The question hit harder than Scarlett expected. "Victor wanted me to disappear. And Mr. Moretti wants you to be seen. Maybe that's not such a bad thing." Scarlett ran her fingers over the fabric. It was soft, expensive, the kind of dress she'd never have bought for herself. "What if I can't do this?" she whispered. Elena stepped closer. Then you fake it. You walk in there with your head up, you smile, and you let them all wonder how you ended up on top. She squeezed Scarlett's shoulder. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. None of us do, but we do it anyway. That night, Scarlett put on the dress. She let Elena do her hair and makeup. She slipped on the heels that made her 3 inches taller and stared at herself in the mirror. She looked like someone else. Someone confident, untouchable. Someone who hadn't spent the last month crying herself to sleep. Dante was waiting for her at the bottom of the stairs. He looked up as she descended, and for the first time since she'd met him, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation. You look perfect, he said. I look expensive. Same thing. He offered her his arm. Ready? No. Good, neither is he. They walked out to the car together, and Scarlett tried not to think about the fact that she was about to face the man who'd shattered her life. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Club, a building Scarlett had only ever seen from the outside. Inside, it was all marble columns and crystal chandeliers filled with people who looked like they'd been born wearing tuxedos and gowns. Dante kept his hand on the small of her back as they walked in, a possessive gesture that made her feel both protected and trapped. Stay close, he murmured, and don't let him see you flinch. I won't. Good. They moved through the crowd, Dante nodding at people he knew, introducing Scarlett as his wife. The word still felt foreign. Wrong. But she smiled and shook hands and played the part. And then she saw him. Victor stood near the bar, laughing at something a man in a tuxedo had said. He looked exactly the same, perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect smile. Like the last month hadn't happened, like she'd never existed. Beside him stood Marianne Chen, tall, elegant, wearing a white dress that probably cost more than Scarlett's entire wardrobe. She had her hand on Victor's arm, and he looked at her the way he used to look at Scarlett, like she mattered. Scarlett's chest tightened. Dante must have felt her tense because his hand pressed more firmly against her back. Breathe. I am breathing. Then stop looking at him like he still owns you. She tore her eyes away from Victor and looked up at Dante. He doesn't. Then prove it. Before she could respond, Dante steered her directly toward the bar, toward Victor. Scarlett's heart hammered in her chest. She wanted to run, wanted to disappear, but Dante's hand kept her anchored, kept her moving forward. Victor saw them approaching. His smile faltered. Just for a second. But it was enough. Dante Moretti, Victor said, his voice carefully neutral. I didn't know you'd be here. I go where my wife goes. Dante's tone was smooth, casual. Victor Langford. It's been a while. Victor's eyes flicked to Scarlett. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, confusion, maybe a flash of anger. Scarlett, Victor. Marianne looked between them, her smile tight. I don't believe we've met. Marianne Chen, Victor said quickly. This is Scarlett Hayes, an old, friend. Scarlett Moretti now, Dante corrected, his voice like ice. My wife. The silence that followed was deafening. Victor stared at Scarlett like he'd never seen her before. You're married. As of yesterday, Dante said. Small ceremony, very intimate. Marianne's smile didn't waver, but her eyes were sharp. How lovely. Congratulations. Thank you. Scarlett forced herself to meet Victor's eyes. Congratulations to you as well. I hear your wedding is next month. Victor's jaw tightened. Yes, it is. I'm sure it'll be beautiful. Scarlett's voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking. Much bigger than ours. We prefer intimacy to spectacle, Dante said smoothly. He signaled the bartender. Champagne for my wife. Whiskey for me. The bartender poured their drinks, and Scarlett took hers with trembling fingers. She raised the glass but didn't drink, couldn't drink, and hoped no one noticed. So, Marianne said, her voice bright and cold. How did you two meet? Through mutual interests, Dante said. How vague. Marianne's smile sharpened. Victor and I met through our families. Very traditional. Traditional is overrated, Dante said. He looked at Victor. Wouldn't you agree? Victor's eyes were still on Scarlett. I wouldn't know. I've never been married before. First time for everything. Dante's hand moved to Scarlett's waist, pulling her closer. Though I have to say, I'm surprised you let this one go. She's remarkable. The words were a knife, and Victor felt it. Scarlett could see it in the way his expression hardened. People change, Victor said tightly. Priorities shift. They certainly do. Dante raised his glass. To new priorities. They toasted, the clink of crystal cutting through the tension like a blade. Scarlett drank water and tried not to fall apart. Marianne touched Victor's arm. Darling, we should say hello to the Hastings. They've been waiting. Of course. Victor's eyes lingered on Scarlett for one more second. Then he turned and walked away without another word, Marianne at his side. Scarlett watched them disappear into the crowd, and something inside her cracked. You did well, Dante said quietly. I feel like I'm going to be sick. Not here. Wait until we're in the car. He guided her toward the exit. Come on, we've done what we came to do. They left the gala in silence. Scarlett made it to the car before the tears started, and once they did, she couldn't stop them. Dante didn't say anything, just handed her a handkerchief and stared out the window while she cried. When they pulled up to the townhouse, he finally spoke. He knows now. Scarlett wiped her eyes. Knows what? That you're not his anymore. That you've moved on. Dante turned to look at her. And it's killing him. Good, Scarlett whispered, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, she meant it. The photograph appeared in the society pages 2 days later. Scarlett was sitting in the library when Elena brought her the newspaper, folded to show the image. Her and Dante at the gala, his hand on her waist, both of them looking like they belonged together. The caption read, Dante Moretti and new bride Scarlett make their debut at the Langford Foundation Gala. She stared at the picture, at the woman in the emerald dress who looked confident and untouchable. That woman wasn't her, couldn't be her. You look beautiful, Elena said gently. I look like a liar. You look like someone who survived. Elena set down a cup of tea. That's not the same as lying. Scarlett traced the edge of the photograph with her finger. Somewhere across town, Victor was probably seeing this same image. She wondered what he thought, if he thought about her at all. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nina. Saw the photo. Are you okay? Call me. Scarlett typed back quickly. I'm fine. Just playing the part. The response came immediately. That's what I'm afraid of. Before Scarlett could reply, Dante walked into the library. He glanced at the newspaper, then at her. Good press, he said. Is that all you care about? How it looks in the paper? Right now, yes. He poured himself coffee from the service Elena had brought. Perception is everything. Victor saw you on my arm, the city saw you on my arm, and now everyone's wondering how a nobody ended up married to me. I'm not a nobody. To them you are. That's what makes this interesting. He sat down across from her. Victor built his entire identity on being untouchable, above everyone. Now you've aligned yourself with the one person in this city who has more power than he does. It's eating him alive. How do you know? Because I know Victor. He doesn't lose. Ever. And you were his until you weren't. Dante's eyes were sharp. He's going to retaliate. Scarlett's stomach tightened. What do you mean, retaliate? He'll try to discredit you, make you look desperate or opportunistic. He'll tell people you're using me, that this marriage is fake. It is fake. They don't know that. Dante leaned forward, which is why you need to sell it better. I stood next to you at a gala. What more do you want? I want you to stop looking like you're about to run every time I touch you. I want you to act like you actually want to be here. His voice wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. People can smell fear, so can Victor. Scarlett set down her teacup with more force than necessary. Maybe I wouldn't look so scared if you told me what the hell I'm actually part of. You keep talking about Victor like he's your enemy, but you won't tell me why. Because it's not relevant. It is if I'm the weapon you're using against him. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, hands in his pockets. 5 years ago, Victor and I were partners on a development deal. High-rise luxury condos, prime location. We both put in equal capital. Then 2 weeks before closing, he pulled out and took the permits with him. Took them how? Bribed the right people, forged documents, made it look like I'd violated zoning laws. Dante's jaw tightened. The deal collapsed. I lost $15 million and 6 months of work. He turned around and built those condos himself and made triple what we would have made together. Scarlett absorbed this. So this is about money. It's about respect. He screwed me over because he thought he could, because he thought I wouldn't do anything about it. Dante turned to face her. I've spent 5 years waiting for the right moment to remind him that actions have consequences. And I'm that moment. You're the perfect moment. He threw you away like trash, and now you're under my protection. Every time he sees you with me, he's reminded that he's not as smart as he thinks he is. Scarlett looked down at her hands. What happens when you're done with your revenge? When Victor's been humiliated enough? Then you're free to go. That was the deal. And the baby? The baby stays protected. I gave you my word. Your word! Scarlett laughed bitterly. I'm supposed to trust the word of a man who married me to settle a score. You don't have to trust me. You just have to benefit from the arrangement. Dante checked his watch. I have a meeting. You have a doctor's appointment at 2. My driver will take you. I can take myself. No, you can't. You're my wife now. That means you don't go anywhere without security. Security? I'm going to see an obstetrician, not a war zone. In my world, those are the same thing. He headed for the door, then paused. And Scarlett? Start wearing the ring. People notice when a new bride doesn't wear her wedding ring. He left before she could respond. Scarlett looked down at her bare left hand. The ring sat in a velvet box on her nightstand, a platinum band with a diamond so big it felt obscene. She hadn't worn it since the ceremony. Putting it on felt like admitting this was real. But Dante was right. People would notice. She went upstairs, opened the box, and slid the ring onto her finger. It was heavier than she expected, colder. It felt like a shackle. The doctor's office was in a medical building on the Upper East Side, the kind of place where the waiting room had fresh orchids and the magazines were current. Scarlett sat in a leather chair, filling out forms under the watchful eye of Dante's driver, who stood near the door like a bodyguard. You can wait in the car, she told him. Mr. Moretti said to stay with you. I'm filling out paperwork. I think I'll survive. He didn't move. Scarlett sighed and went back to the forms. Name, address, insurance information. When she got to the line for father's name, she hesitated. Legally, it should be Victor. But Dante's lawyers had made it clear. Once the baby was born, Dante's name would go on the birth certificate. The baby would be a Moretti in every way that mattered. She left the line blank. The nurse called her name and she followed her back to an exam room. The driver stayed in the waiting room, which was something. The doctor was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She reviewed Scarlett's chart, asked the standard questions, then had her change into a gown for the exam. Everything looks good so far, the doctor said, pressing gently on Scarlett's abdomen. How are you feeling? Any nausea? Some. Mostly in the mornings. That's normal. It should ease up in a few weeks. She made notes on the chart. I see you recently got married. Congratulations. Thanks. Is your husband supportive? Scarlett thought about Dante, about the cold way he'd laid out the terms of their arrangement, about the fact that he'd never once asked how she was feeling. He's practical, she said finally. The doctor raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Well, if you need anything, resources, support groups, counseling, let me know. Pregnancy can be stressful even in the best circumstances. I'll be fine. I'm sure you will. But the offer stands. They did an ultrasound next. Scarlett lay on the exam table, staring at the screen as the doctor moved the wand over her still flat stomach. For a moment there was nothing, just static and shadows. Then she saw it, a tiny flutter. A shape that barely looked human but was somehow unmistakably alive. There's your baby. the doctor said softly. Heartbeat is strong. Everything looks perfect. Scarlett couldn't speak. She just stared at the screen, at the tiny life growing inside her. Victor's child. Her child. The reason she was in this mess to begin with. The doctor printed out images and handed them to her. Your next appointment is in 4 weeks. Make sure you're taking your prenatal vitamins. Scarlett nodded, still staring at the ultrasound picture. The baby looked impossibly small, fragile. She folded the image carefully and tucked it into her purse. When she came out to the waiting room, the driver stood immediately. Everything okay? Fine. They drove back to the townhouse in silence. Scarlett stared out the window, one hand resting on her stomach, thinking about the tiny heartbeat she'd just seen. This baby didn't ask to be part of this. Didn't ask for a father who didn't want him or a mother who'd married a stranger out of desperation. But he was here, and she had to protect him, even if it meant playing this role for the rest of her life. That night, Dante came home late. Scarlett heard him moving around downstairs, heard the clink of glass as he poured himself a drink. She was halfway down the stairs before she realized she was going to talk to him. He was in his study, a dark room full of bookshelves and expensive furniture, standing by the window with a whiskey in his hand. I didn't know you were still awake, he said without turning around. I couldn't sleep. Join the club. He took a sip of his drink. How was the appointment? Fine. Everything's fine. Good. Silence settled between them. Scarlett stood in the doorway, unsure why she'd come down here, what she wanted to say. I saw the baby today, she said finally, on the ultrasound. Dante turned to look at her. And? And it's real. Not just some abstract concept. There's a person growing inside me. I'm aware of how pregnancy works. Are you? She stepped into the room. Because you act like this is just another business deal. Like the baby's just a line item in your revenge plan. That's not true, isn't it? You haven't asked how I'm feeling. You haven't asked what the doctor said. You just told me to show up and look pretty at your meetings. Dante set down his glass. What do you want me to say, Scarlett? That I care about your baby? Our baby. Legally, he's yours now. Legally, yes. But we both know whose kid he really is. Dante's voice was flat. I'm giving him my name and my protection. That's more than his real father's willing to do. That doesn't mean you get to ignore him. I'm not ignoring him. I'm keeping him safe. There's a difference. Scarlett crossed her arms. You're keeping me safe because it serves your purpose. The baby's just collateral. Think whatever you want. Dante turned back to the window. But don't pretend you're here for any reason other than self-preservation. You needed protection. I gave it to you. We both got what we wanted. I didn't want this. I wanted a normal life. A family. Someone who actually loved me. Then you shouldn't have fallen for Victor Langford. The words stung because they were true. Scarlett blinked back tears. I didn't come down here to fight. Then why did you come down? I don't know. She wrapped her arms around herself. Maybe because this house is too big and too quiet, and I'm tired of pretending I'm okay with all of this. Dante looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since she'd walked in. You don't have to pretend with me. Yes, I do. That's literally the arrangement. Not when it's just us. There is no just us. There's the deal. That's it. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he crossed the room and stood in front of her, close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath. You want honesty? He said quietly. Fine. I don't know how to be what you need. I don't know how to care about a baby that isn't mine or comfort a woman I barely know. But I can keep you safe. I can make sure Victor never touches you or your son, and right now that's the best I can offer. Scarlett met his eyes. For the first time, she saw something other than cold calculation, something almost human. Then keep me safe, she whispered. That's all I'm asking. I will. He said it like a promise, like a vow that meant more than the ones they'd said at City Hall. Scarlett nodded and turned to leave. But before she reached the door, Dante spoke again. Scarlett. She stopped. The baby, he said. When he's born, I'll do right by him. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'll figure it out. It wasn't much, but it was more than she'd expected. Thank you, she said, and she meant it. Boy, 2 weeks passed. The city stopped talking about Dante Moretti's surprise marriage, and life settled into a strange new rhythm. Scarlett spent her days wandering the townhouse, reading in the library, talking to Nina on the phone. Dante came and went, always busy, always working. They crossed paths at breakfast sometimes, exchanged polite small talk, then went their separate ways. It was lonely, but it was safe. Then the invitation arrived. Elena brought it to Scarlett on a silver tray, like everything in this house. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Victor Langford and Marianne Chen request the pleasure of your company at their engagement celebration. Scarlett's hand shook as she read it. Mr. Moretti already RSVP'd, yes, Elena said carefully. He thought you should know. Of course he did. Scarlett set down the invitation. When is it? Saturday night, black tie. Wonderful. Elena hesitated. You don't have to go. Yes, I do. That's the arrangement. Remember? Scarlett forced a smile. I'm the trophy wife. I go where I'm told. You're more than that. Am I? Scarlett looked down at the invitation again, at Victor's name printed in elegant script. Because from where I'm sitting, I'm just a prop in someone else's revenge fantasy. Elena sat down beside her. When I first started working for Mr. Moretti, I thought the same thing. That he was cold, calculating, that he only cared about winning. And now I know he's all those things. But I also know he keeps his promises, and he doesn't let people into his life unless they matter. I don't matter to him. I'm useful. There's a difference. Maybe, but useful is better than discarded. Scarlett thought about Victor, about how easily he'd thrown her away. Yeah, I guess it is. Saturday night came too fast. Scarlett stood in front of the mirror in another dress Dante had chosen, midnight blue this time, with delicate beading that caught the light. She looked like someone who belonged at an engagement party for the city's elite. She felt like an imposter. Dante knocked on her door at 7. He wore a tuxedo that fit him like it had been made for his body, which it probably had. He looked at her and nodded. You look good. So do you. Ready? No. Good answer. He offered his arm. Let's go destroy an engagement party. The party was at Victor's penthouse, the same place Scarlett had walked out of 2 months ago, holding a pregnancy test and a shattered heart. Walking back in felt like stepping into a nightmare. The place was packed. Champagne flowed. A string quartet played in the corner. Everyone who mattered was there, dressed in designer clothes and fake smiles. And there, in the center of it all, stood Victor and Marianne. They looked perfect together, like something out of a magazine. Victor in his tuxedo, Marianne in a white dress that probably cost more than Scarlett's car. They were laughing, holding court, playing the role of the golden couple. Scarlett felt Dante's hand tighten on her waist. Breathe, he murmured. I'm breathing. Then smile. You're happy, remember? You've moved on to something better. Scarlett plastered on a smile and let Dante guide her into the crowd. They made it maybe 10 feet before Victor saw them. His smile faltered. Just for a second. Then he recovered, excused himself from his conversation, and walked straight toward them. Dante, Scarlett. His voice was controlled, but there was an edge to it. I'm glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, Dante said smoothly. Congratulations on your engagement. Thank you. Victor's eyes flicked to Scarlett. I was surprised to see your RSVP. Didn't think this would be your kind of event. My wife goes where I go, Dante said, and she wanted to wish you well. Scarlett forced herself to speak. Congratulations, Victor. I hope you're very happy. I am. He said it too quickly. Marianne is everything I could want. How nice for you. The air between them crackled with tension. Marianne appeared at Victor's side, slipping her arm through his. Dante, Scarlett, so wonderful to see you again. Her smile was bright and sharp. I'm so glad you could celebrate with us. Wouldn't dream of missing it, Dante said. I was just telling Victor how lovely your wedding announcement was in the paper. So romantic, getting married so quickly. Marianne's eyes gleamed. How long did you say you'd known each other before the wedding? Long enough, Scarlett said. How mysterious. Marianne laughed. Victor and I have known each other since we were children. Our families have been close for years. It makes everything so much easier when you share the same background. The implication was clear. Scarlett wasn't from the right background, wasn't from the right world. Shared background is overrated, Dante said coldly. I prefer someone who earned their place rather than inherited it. Marianne's smile tightened. How modern of you. I think so. Dante turned to Scarlett. Let's get a drink. They moved toward the bar, leaving Victor and Marianne standing there. Scarlett could feel their eyes on her back. That woman is a piece of work, Dante muttered. She's perfect for him. Exactly. They reached the bar and Dante ordered drinks. Scarlett took hers, water again, and tried to steady her breathing. You're doing fine, Dante said quietly. I don't feel fine. I feel like I'm going to fall apart. Don't. Not here. He touched her chin, tilting her face toward his. Look at me. She did. Victor is watching us right now. He's watching to see if you break, if you give him the satisfaction of knowing he still affects you. Dante's voice was low, intense. Don't give him that. Make him wonder if you ever cared at all. I did care. That's the problem. Then fake it. Fake it until you don't care anymore. He pulled her closer, his hand sliding to her waist, and Scarlett realized what he was doing. He was making a show of it, making sure Victor saw them together, saw the way Dante touched her, saw that she'd moved on. It should have felt manipulative. It should have made her angry. Instead, it made her feel powerful. She leaned into Dante, let him hold her close, and watched Victor's face from across the room. He was staring, and he didn't look happy. Good. But the party dragged on for hours. Scarlett smiled and nodded and played the role of Dante's devoted wife. She made polite conversation with people she didn't know. She avoided Victor. She let Dante guide her through the room like she belonged there. And somewhere around midnight, when the champagne had been flowing for hours and the crowd was starting to thin, Victor cornered her. She was standing near the windows, looking out at the city, when he appeared beside her. Can we talk? He said quietly. Scarlett turned. Dante was across the room talking to some business associate, too far away to intervene. What do you want, Victor? I want to know what you're doing. I'm at your engagement party, congratulating you. You know what I mean. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You married Dante Moretti, of all people. So? So he's dangerous, Scarlett. He's not someone you should be involved with. She almost laughed. You're warning me about dangerous men? That's rich. I'm serious. Moretti has enemies, people who wouldn't hesitate to hurt you to get to him. And you cared so much about my safety when you threw me out of your life. Victor's jaw tightened. That was different. How? Because... He stopped himself. Look, I know I hurt you, but this, marrying him, this is reckless. What do you care? I'm not your problem anymore. You're carrying my child. The words hung between them like a grenade. Scarlett stared at him. My child, not yours. You made that very clear. I made a mistake. You think? She laughed bitterly. You threw me away because I wasn't convenient, because I didn't fit into your perfect plan, and now you're marrying someone else and pretending like I never existed. That's not true. Then what is true, Victor? Tell me. Because from where I'm standing, you made your choice, and I made mine. Your choice was Dante Moretti, a man who uses people like chess pieces. At least he's honest about it. Scarlett took a step back. You should get back to your fiancée. She's probably wondering where you are. Scarlett, congratulations on your engagement, Victor. I hope it's everything you wanted. She walked away before he could respond, her heart pounding in her chest. Dante met her halfway across the room. What did he say to you? That you're dangerous and I made a mistake. And what did you say? That I made my choice. Dante studied her face. Then he smiled, a real smile, not the cold one he used for show. Good. Let's get out of here. They left the party together, stepping out into the cool night air. Scarlett felt like she could finally breathe. As they drove away, she looked back at the penthouse, at the windows glowing with light, at the party still going on without them. She thought about Victor standing in that room, watching her leave. And for the first time since he'd thrown her away, she didn't feel like the one who'd lost. The shift happened slowly, so slowly that Scarlett didn't notice it at first. It started with small things. Dante asking how her day was over breakfast, Elena mentioning that he'd specifically requested her favorite tea, the way he'd started coming home earlier, not at midnight, but closer to 8 or 9, joining her for dinner in the formal dining room that had felt too big and empty before. 3 weeks after Victor's engagement party, Scarlett woke up at 2 in the morning with nausea so violent she barely made it to the bathroom. She spent 20 minutes on the cold tile floor, retching until there was nothing left, her whole body shaking. When she finally managed to stand, Dante was in the doorway. "How long has this been happening?" he asked. She wiped her mouth with a shaking hand. "It's just morning sickness." "It's 2 in the morning. The baby doesn't know how to tell time." He disappeared for a moment, then came back with a glass of water and a cold washcloth. He handed her both without a word. Scarlett pressed the cloth to her face, grateful for the coolness against her skin. "You didn't have to get up." "I heard you." He leaned against the door frame watching her. "You should have told me it was this bad. What were you going to do about it?" "I don't know. Something." He ran a hand through his hair. It was the first time she'd seen it messed up, not perfectly styled. "Can you eat anything?" "Crackers, maybe. Ginger ale. I'll have Elena stock them." "She already did." "Then I'll have her get more." He waited while she sipped the water. "Come on, let's get you back to bed." She expected him to leave her at her bedroom door, but he followed her inside, making sure she was settled before he turned to go. "Dante?" He stopped. "Thank you." He nodded once, then left, closing the door quietly behind him. Scarlett lay in the dark, one hand on her stomach, and wondered when exactly Dante Moretti had stopped being just a cold arrangement and started feeling like something else. The next morning, there were saltine crackers on her nightstand, a case of ginger ale in the small refrigerator Elena had somehow installed in her room overnight, and a note in Dante's sharp handwriting, "Call me if you need anything. D." She tucked the note into her drawer and tried not to think about what it meant. 2 days later, Dante came home with a bag from a bookstore. "I don't know what you're supposed to read when you're pregnant," he said, setting it on the library table where she was curled up with a novel. "So I got a few options." Scarlett looked inside. Pregnancy guides, parenting books, a memoir by some woman who'd had twins. "You went to a bookstore." "I had my assistant go, but I picked them out." "Why?" He shrugged, uncomfortable. "You should know what's happening with the baby." "I have a doctor for that." "Yeah, but doctors don't tell you everything. My sister said the books helped when she was pregnant." Scarlett stared at him. "You have a sister?" "Had. She died 4 years ago." He said it flatly, no emotion. "Car accident. I'm sorry." "It was a long time ago." He picked up one of the books, flipped through it. "She used to tell me everything she learned, more than I wanted to know, honestly, but she said it made her feel less scared." "Were you close?" "Yeah, she was the only family I had left." He set the book down. "Anyway, I thought you might want these." He left before she could say anything else. Scarlett opened the first book and saw a sticky note on the inside cover in that same sharp handwriting. Chapter 7 talks about morning sickness. Might help. She read the whole chapter that night. Tut, the changes kept coming, small and quiet. Dante started joining her for breakfast every morning. They didn't talk much. He read the newspaper, she picked at toast and tried not to throw up, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was almost companionable. He asked about her doctor's appointments, reminded her to take her vitamins, made sure Elena knew which foods made her nauseous so they'd stop appearing at meals. One night, when Scarlett came downstairs for water, she found him in the study with building plans spread across his desk. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "The baby's been kicking. Feels weird." "Kicking already?" "Flutters, really, but yeah." She came closer, looking at the plans. "What are you working on?" "New development downtown. Mixed-use building, residential and commercial. He pointed to a section of the blueprint. The city's been fighting me on the zoning for months. Why? Because Victor Langford's been lobbying against it. Says it'll create too much traffic in his neighborhood. Scarlett frowned. Is that true? No, he just doesn't want me building anything that might compete with his properties. Dante leaned back in his chair. He's been blocking my projects for years. This is just the latest one. How do you deal with that? I find workarounds, pay the right people, file the right paperwork, wait him out. He looked at her. Why are you asking? I don't know. I guess I'm trying to understand how this all works. Your world. It's not that complicated. People have power. They use it to get what they want. The ones with the most power win. And you have the most power? In some circles. He gathered up the blueprints. Victor has old money, political connections, a family name that opens doors. I have leverage and a willingness to do what needs to be done. We're evenly matched, more or less. Except now you have me. Yeah, now I have you. He met her eyes. Does that bother you? I don't know anymore. She wrapped her arms around herself. In the beginning, yes, it felt like I was being used, but now what? Now it feels different, like maybe this isn't just about revenge. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and crossed to the small bar in the corner, pouring himself a drink. You want the truth? Always. When I married you, it was strategic, a way to hurt Victor and prove a point. He swirled the whiskey in his glass. But you're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone bitter, broken. Someone who'd take my money and do what she was told without asking questions. He turned to face her. You're not any of those things. I feel pretty broken most days. You're not. You're stubborn and scared and doing your best with a shitty situation. That's not the same as broken. Scarlett didn't know what to say to that. Go get some sleep, Dante said, softer now. The baby needs you to rest. She nodded and headed for the door, but stopped before leaving. Dante? Yeah? Thank you. For the books. For everything. Don't thank me yet. I'm still using you to destroy Victor's reputation. But he said it with the ghost of a smile, and Scarlett found herself smiling back. Mom. The article appeared 3 days later. Scarlett was having lunch with Nina, their first in-person meeting since the wedding, when Nina showed her the headline on her phone. Langford Empire. Under investigation. Allegations of fraud and bribery. Holy shit, Nina whispered. Is this because of Dante? Scarlett grabbed the phone and read quickly. The article detailed an investigation into Victor's business dealings, specifically the condo development Dante had mentioned. Forged documents, bribed officials, evidence that Victor had been manipulating city permits for years. I don't know, Scarlett said, but her stomach was churning. I need to call Dante. Right now, we're having lunch. Nina. I know. The Mafia boss comes first. Nina sighed. Go, call your husband. Scarlett stepped outside the restaurant and dialed. Dante answered on the second ring. Did you see the news, what? She asked. I did. Did you do this? Silence. Dante, did you leak this information? I may have provided some documentation to the right journalist. Documentation you've had this whole time? I've been building a case against Victor for 5 years. I told you that. Scarlett pressed a hand to her forehead. You're destroying him. That was always the plan. I know, but... She stopped. This is real now. This could ruin his entire company. Good. He deserves it. What about Marianne? What about all the people who work for him? Collateral damage. Dante's voice was cold again. The warmth from the past few weeks vanished. Victor made his choices. Now he gets to live with them. Is there more? More evidence you're going to release? Depends on how this plays out. Dante, I have to go. I'll see you at home. He hung up. Scarlett stood on the sidewalk, phone in hand, and felt the ground shift beneath her feet. She'd known from the beginning that Dante wanted revenge. She'd agreed to be part of it, but seeing it happen, seeing Victor's empire start to crumble, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Nina came out of the restaurant. You okay? I don't know. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. Scarlett put her phone away. Can we just have lunch, like normal people? We can try. They went back inside and ordered salads. Neither of them really ate. Nina talked about her job, her terrible apartment, her latest dating disaster. Scarlett tried to focus, tried to be present, but her mind kept drifting back to the article, to Victor, to the look on his face when his world came crashing down. When lunch was over, Nina walked her to the car where Dante's driver waited. Be careful, Nina said, hugging her tight. I know you're in deep with him, but don't forget who you are. I won't. Promise me. I promise. But as the car pulled away, Scarlett wasn't sure she could keep that promise. She wasn't even sure who she was anymore. Victor called that night. Scarlett was in her room when her phone rang, a number she'd deleted but still recognized. She stared at the screen for 3 rings before answering. What do you want, Victor? I need to talk to you. His voice was strained. In person. No. Scarlett, please. This is important. I don't care. It's about the article, about the investigation. Then talk to your lawyer. I know Dante's behind this. I know you know. He paused. Just give me 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Every instinct told her to hang up, to block his number and pretend he didn't exist. But there was something in his voice, something desperate, that made her hesitate. Where? The coffee shop on Madison, the one we used to go to. I'm not coming alone. Fine. Bring whoever you want. Just come. He hung up before she could change her mind. Scarlett sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, and wondered if she was making a mistake. Then she went downstairs to find Dante. He was in the study, on a phone call that sounded tense. He held up a finger when he saw her, 1 minute, then finished the conversation and hung up. What's wrong? He asked. Victor called. He wants to meet. Dante's expression darkened. Absolutely not. I already said yes. Then call him back and say no. I want to hear what he has to say. It's a trap, Scarlett. He's cornered and desperate. People like that are dangerous. I'll have your driver with me. I'll be safe. That's not the point. Then what is the point? She crossed her arms. You've spent months using me to get to him. Now he wants to talk to me and you're saying no? Because I don't trust him. I don't either, but I'm going anyway. She held his gaze. You don't get to control everything, Dante. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. Fine, but I'm coming with you. He said I could bring someone. Good, because you're not doing this alone. They drove to the coffee shop in tense silence. It was the place Scarlett had gone with Victor dozens of times, back when they were happy. Back when she'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings. Now it just looked like a coffee shop. Victor was already there, sitting at a corner table with his hands wrapped around a cup. He clearly wasn't drinking. He looked terrible, hair disheveled, tie loose, dark circles under his eyes. When he saw Scarlett walk in with Dante, his expression hardened. I said 10 minutes, Victor said. Not a business meeting. She doesn't go anywhere without me, Dante replied, pulling out a chair for Scarlett. Say what you need to say. Victor's jaw clenched, but he turned to Scarlett, ignoring Dante completely. Did you know about this? About the investigation? I saw the article today, same as everyone else. That's not what I asked. Then let me be clear. I don't know what Dante does with his business. I'm his wife, not his partner. Convenient. Victor looked at Dante. You've been planning this for years, haven't you? Waiting for the right moment to destroy me. Something like that, Dante said calmly. And you. Victor turned back to Scarlett. You're just going to let him do this? Let him ruin everything I've built? You ruined it yourself, Scarlett said quietly. Dante just brought it to light. I made mistakes, I know that. But this? Victor gestured at nothing. This is scorched earth. You threw me away like garbage. What did you expect? I expected you to move on, not to marry my enemy and help him destroy my life. I didn't help him. I didn't even know. But you're not trying to stop him either. Scarlett looked at Victor, really looked at him. At the man she'd loved, the man she'd thought she'd spend her life with. He looked smaller now, diminished. Why would I stop him? She said softly. You didn't stop yourself when you had the chance. Victor's face crumpled. I made a mistake, Scarlett. Letting you go was the biggest mistake of my life. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't do this now. Don't pretend you care just because your empire is falling apart. I do care. He glanced at Dante, then back at her. Can we talk alone? Just for a minute? No, Dante said. I wasn't asking you. And I don't give a shit. You wanted to talk. You're talking. With both of us here. Victor stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is pointless. You've already made up your mind. I made up my mind the night you told me I didn't fit into your life, Scarlett said. This is just the consequence. The consequence is me losing everything? The consequence is you finally facing what you did. To me. To other people. She stood too, Dante rising beside her. You spent years cheating and lying and using people. Dante just made sure everyone else knew. So that's it? You're going to stand by and watch him destroy me? I'm going to protect my son. That's all I care about. Victor's eyes dropped to her stomach, still not showing but no longer flat. Something flickered across his face. Regret, maybe, or loss. That's my son, too, he said quietly. No, Dante said. He's not. Biologically. Biologically doesn't mean shit. You gave up that right when you walked away. Dante's voice was ice. When he's born, my name goes on the birth certificate. He'll grow up as a Moretti. You'll be nothing to him. Victor looked like he'd been slapped. Scarlett, you can't. I can. I already have. She reached for Dante's hand, surprised at how natural it felt, and held on. We're done here. They walked out together, leaving Victor standing alone in the coffee shop. Outside, Scarlett's hands were shaking. Dante guided her to the car, helped her inside, then slid in beside her. You okay? He asked. I don't know. I just told the father of my baby that he'll never be part of his life. You told him the truth. That's different. Is it? She looked at Dante. What if he fights for custody? What if he takes me to court? He won't. How do you know? Because he's too busy trying to save his company. And because I have lawyers who will bury him if he tries. Dante's hand found hers again, squeezed gently. Your son is protected. I promised you that. Scarlett wanted to believe him, but the fear lingered sharp and cold in her chest. They drove home in silence. When they arrived, Dante walked her to her room, something he'd never done before. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow's going to be worse. Worse how? The story's going to blow up. Victor's going to scramble. The press is going to want statements. He hesitated. It's going to get messy. Great. You don't have to deal with any of it. Stay here, stay quiet, let me handle it. I'm not hiding. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to stay safe. He touched her face just briefly. Please. The gentleness in his voice surprised her. Okay. Okay. He left, and Scarlett closed the door behind him. She got ready for bed mechanically, her mind spinning. When she finally lay down, she put a hand on her stomach and whispered, I'm sorry. I'm sorry your father doesn't want you, but I promise you're going to be okay. We both are. The baby fluttered in response, and Scarlett closed her eyes, trying to believe her own words. The next 2 weeks were chaos. The investigation into Victor's company exploded across every news outlet. More evidence surfaced, emails, financial records, witness testimonies. The city launched a full audit. Victor's stock prices plummeted. Investors pulled out. His wedding to Marianne was postponed indefinitely. Scarlett watched it all from the safety of Dante's townhouse, reading articles on her phone, seeing Victor's face on the news looking gaunt and cornered. Dante was busier than ever, constantly on the phone, in meetings, managing the fallout. But he still came home every night, still asked how she was feeling, still made sure she ate dinner even when she wasn't hungry. One night she found him in the library, staring at a laptop screen with a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. "Can't sleep?" she asked. He looked up. "Just finishing some work." "It's 2 in the morning." "I'm aware." He closed the laptop. "What are you doing up?" "Baby won't stop moving." She sat down beside him. "Is it done? The investigation?" "Almost. They're filing charges next week." "Criminal charges? Fraud, bribery, conspiracy? He's looking at serious prison time if they convict." Scarlett absorbed this. "Do you feel better, now that you've destroyed him?" Dante considered the question. "I thought I would, but mostly I just feel tired." "Then why keep going?" "Because he needs to face consequences. People like Victor, they think they're untouchable. Someone has to prove them wrong, even if it ruins his life." "He ruined his own life. I just exposed it." Dante turned to look at her. "Does that bother you?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks he deserves it, but another part, the part that loved him once, feels sad about what he's become." "That's because you're not like him. You still care about people." "Do you? Care about people?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm starting to." The admission hung between them, heavy and unexpected. Scarlett didn't know what to say, so she just sat there, in the quiet library with the man she'd married for protection, and felt something shift, something that felt dangerously close to trust. Dante reached out and placed his hand over hers where it rested on her stomach. "Has he been kicking a lot?" "All the time, especially at night." "Can I—" He hesitated. "Can I feel?" She nodded. He kept his hand there, warm and steady, and after a moment the baby kicked, hard enough that Dante felt it. His eyes widened. I know." They sat like that for a while, Dante's hand on her stomach, both of them quiet. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, Scarlett felt something that wasn't fear or anger or desperation. She felt hope. Maybe this arrangement wasn't just about revenge anymore. Maybe it was becoming something else, something neither of them had planned for, something real. The morning Victor's indictment was announced. Scarlett was 7 months pregnant and couldn't fit into any of her regular clothes. She stood in front of her closet in one of Dante's oversized shirts, staring at the dresses that had fit her just weeks ago, and felt tears prick her eyes. Stupid hormones, stupid pregnancy, stupid everything. There was a knock on her door. "Come in," she called, wiping her face. Dante entered carrying a garment bag. "Elena said you might need this." "What is it?" Maternity clothes. I had them sent over." He hung the bag on her closet door. "Before you argue, you need things that fit. The baby's getting bigger." Scarlett unzipped the bag. Inside were beautiful dresses, soft fabrics, tasteful cuts designed for pregnant bodies. Not the shapeless tents she'd been dreading, actual clothes that looked like someone had put thought into them. "You picked these out?" she asked. "Elena helped, but yeah." He shifted uncomfortably. "I know you don't like people buying you things, but thank you." She pulled out a navy dress with empire waist. "They're perfect." He looked relieved. "Good, because the press is outside and I need you to look like you're not falling apart." "They're here? Now?" "Victor's arraignment is this morning. Every news outlet in the city is covering it." Dante checked his watch. "I have to go downtown to meet with my lawyers, but I wanted to make sure you were okay first." "I'm fine. Just fat." "You're not fat. You're pregnant. There's a difference. Tell that to my closet." He almost smiled. Then his phone buzzed and the moment broke. "I have to go. Elena's downstairs if you need anything. Don't answer the door. Don't talk to reporters. Don't—" "I know the drill, Dante. I'll be fine." He hesitated like he wanted to say something else. Then he just nodded and left. Scarlett put on the navy dress. It fit perfectly, skimming over her belly without clinging, making her look elegant instead of enormous. She studied herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 7 months ago, she'd been broke and desperate, sleeping on Nina's couch and wondering how she'd survive. Now she was living in a townhouse worth millions, married to one of the most powerful men in the city, wearing designer maternity clothes while her ex-fiancé faced criminal charges. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she just felt tired. The news coverage was relentless. Scarlett tried not to watch, but it was everywhere. Victor in a dark suit walking into the courthouse surrounded by lawyers. His face looked thinner, harder. The cameras caught him from every angle. Reporters shouting questions he didn't answer. The charges were read: wire fraud, bribery of public officials, falsification of documents. Each one carried potential prison time. His bail was set at $5 million. Marianne Chen appeared in one shot, standing behind Victor's legal team, her face carefully blank. The wedding that was supposed to join two dynasties had been quietly canceled. Her family's statement said they were reassessing their business relationship with Langford Industries. In other words, they were cutting him loose. Scarlett turned off the television and sat in the quiet library, one hand on her belly where the baby was doing somersaults. She'd thought watching Victor fall would feel satisfying, sweet revenge for all the pain he'd caused. It didn't feel sweet. It just felt heavy. Nina called that afternoon. "Have you seen the news, Fong?" she asked without preamble. "Yeah." "How are you feeling about all this?" "I don't know. Conflicted, I guess." "Conflicted?" "Scarlett, he threw you away when you needed him most. He deserves everything he's getting." "Maybe, but I still remember who he was before all this, or who I thought he was. That person never existed. You just didn't see the real him until it was too late." Nina paused. "How's Dante handling it?" "He's been downtown all day. I think he's meeting with prosecutors." "Is he happy now that he's won?" Scarlett thought about Dante sitting in the library at 2 a.m, saying he felt tired instead of triumphant. "I don't think anyone's happy. This whole thing is just sad. You're too forgiving." "I'm not forgiving anything. I'm just not celebrating someone else's destruction." "Even when they destroyed you first?" "Especially then." Scarlett shifted in her chair, trying to get comfortable. "Revenge doesn't feel the way I thought it would." "What does it feel like?" "Empty." After they hung up, Scarlett sat in the quiet and wondered when she'd stopped being angry, when the burning need for Victor to suffer had faded into something softer, sadder. Maybe it was the pregnancy, all those hormones making her emotional. Or maybe it was living with Dante, seeing firsthand that revenge didn't actually fix anything. It just created new wreckage. Dante came home late that night, loosening his tie as he walked into the library where Scarlett was reading. "How'd it go, Ace?" she asked. "Victor's lawyers are pushing for a plea deal, reduced charges in exchange for testimony against some of his business partners." He poured himself a drink. "Prosecutors are considering it." "Will he go to prison?" "Probably. Even with the deal, he's looking at a few years minimum." Scarlett set down her book. "Do you feel better now that it's basically over?" Dante took a long drink before answering. "I feel like I spent 5 years planning this, and now that it's happening, I don't know what to do with myself." "Was it worth it?" He looked at her, really looked at her. "I don't know yet." "That's honest. You want me to lie?" "No, I want you to tell me what happens now, with us." "What do you mean?" "I mean, the deal was I stay until Victor's destroyed. Well, he's pretty much destroyed. So what happens to me? To the baby?" Dante set down his glass. "You think I'm going to kick you out?" "I don't know what to think. We've never talked about what comes after. Because there is no after." He moved closer, sat down on the chair across from her. "You're my wife. This is your home. That doesn't change just because Victor's case is resolved." "But the marriage was fake. A business arrangement." "It was. At the beginning." He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know when it stopped being fake for me. But it did." Scarlett's heart hammered in her chest. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want you to leave. I want you to stay. I want to be here when the baby's born, and I want to—" He stopped, searching for words. "I want to try to make this real. Dante, I know I'm not good at this. Emotions, relationships, any of it. I know I'm cold and controlling, and I use people." He met her eyes. "But I don't want to use you anymore. I want to be someone you can count on." "You already are," she said softly. "You've taken care of me when you didn't have to. You've protected me. That's not enough." I want more than that. What do you want? He reached for her hand. I want you to want to be here, not because you need protection or money or a roof over your head, but because you want to be with me. Scarlett looked at their joined hands. At the wedding ring she'd stopped thinking of as fake, at the man who'd started as a stranger and become something else entirely. I do want to be here, she whispered. That scares me, but I do. Why does it scare you? Because I fell for Victor, and look how that ended. Because trusting people is terrifying, because, she took a shaky breath, because what if this is just another arrangement that falls apart when it's not convenient anymore? It won't. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. Dante moved to sit beside her, his hand coming up to cup her face. I spent 5 years obsessed with destroying Victor. 5 years where revenge was the only thing that mattered. And then you showed up, and suddenly I had something more important to think about. The baby. You, both of you. His thumb brushed her cheek. I'm not Victor. I won't throw you away when things get hard. I won't choose power over you. But how do I know that? Because I already chose you. Every day for the past 7 months, I chose you. He leaned his forehead against hers. And I'm going to keep choosing you, if you'll let me. Scarlett closed her eyes, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. I'm so scared of getting hurt again. I know, but I'm not going to hurt you. I promise. Promises are easy to break. Then let me prove it. Let me show you I mean it. She pulled back to look at him, at the man who'd offered her safety when she had nothing, who'd stood between her and Victor's cruelty, who'd learned her favorite tea and bought her books about pregnancy and put his hand on her belly to feel their baby kick. Okay, she whispered, show me. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, Scarlett let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have something real. Something that wasn't built on revenge or desperation or fear, something that was just theirs. 2 weeks later, Victor's plea deal was finalized. 3 years in federal prison, followed by probation and restitution. His company was dissolved, assets liquidated to pay back investors and settle lawsuits. The Langford name that had meant power and prestige for generations became synonymous with fraud and corruption. Dante was in meetings all day when the news broke. Scarlett watched the announcement alone in the library, feeling strangely detached from it all. When Dante came home that evening, she was in the nursery they'd been setting up. A room on the 3rd floor with soft gray walls and white furniture. She was folding tiny clothes when he found her. You heard? He asked from the doorway. Yeah. How do you feel? She set down a onesie. Relieved, I think, that it's over, that we can move on. We can. He came into the room, looking around at this carefully arranged furniture, the mobile hanging above the crib, the shelves full of books they'd bought together. It looks good in here. Elena helped. Still, it's nice. He picked up one of the stuffed animals, an elephant that played lullabies. 2 months until he's here. 7 weeks, actually, but who's counting? She smiled. Are you nervous? Terrified. Really? You don't seem terrified of anything. I'm terrified of screwing this up, of not knowing how to be a father. He set down the elephant. I never thought I'd have kids. Never wanted them. And now you're stuck with one. Now I can't imagine not having him. Dante looked at her. Or you. Scarlett felt her throat tighten. You're going to be a good father. How do you know? Because you already are. You've been protecting him since before he was born. You've made sure we have everything we need. You care, even when you pretend you don't. I'm not pretending anymore. I know. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, careful of her belly. She leaned into him, breathing in the smell of his cologne and feeling safer than she had in months. I love you, Dante said quietly. I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Scarlett. She pulled back to look at him. You love me? Yeah, I do. Since when? I don't know. Somewhere between the 2nd doctor's appointment and the 5th time I found you crying in the bathroom at 3 a.m. He touched her face. You don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know. But Scarlett realized she did want to say it back, that somewhere in the past 7 months, the man who'd married her for revenge had become the man she couldn't imagine living without. I love you too, she whispered. I didn't mean to, but I do. He kissed her, deeper this time, and Scarlett felt something click into place. This was real. This was home. This was the life she'd built from the ashes of the one Victor destroyed. And it was better than anything she'd imagined. That night, they lay in bed together, something that had become routine over the past month as their relationship shifted from arrangement to actual marriage. Dante's hand rested on her belly, feeling the baby move. What should we name him? Scarlett asked. I don't know. I'm terrible at names. You named your company after yourself. You can't be that terrible. That's different. A company is easy. A person is... He paused. What about Luca? Luca? It was my grandfather's name, the only person in my family who was worth a damn. Scarlett tested it out. Luca Moretti. You hate it. No, I don't. I like it. She turned to face him. Luca Antonio Moretti. Antonio was my father's middle name. Luca Antonio Moretti, Dante repeated. Yeah, that works. You're sure we don't have to use family names if... I'm sure. He kissed her forehead. Our son deserves a name that means something, that connects him to people who mattered. Even though he's not... Scarlett stopped herself. Not biologically mine? I don't care about biology. He's mine in every way that counts. Scarlett felt tears sting her eyes again. Damn hormones. You're a good man, Dante Moretti. Don't let that get around. You'll ruin my reputation. She laughed and settled against him, feeling the baby kick between them. This was her family now. This strange, unexpected, perfectly imperfect family. And she wouldn't trade it for anything. The weeks that followed were quieter. Victor's name disappeared from the headlines as new scandals took its place. Scarlett's belly grew bigger, making simple tasks like tying her shoes nearly impossible. Dante became obsessive about her health, monitoring her doctor's appointments, making sure she rested, hovering in a way that was both annoying and endearing. You're going to drive me crazy, she told him one morning when he asked for the third time if she'd eaten breakfast. Good. That means I'm doing my job. Your job is running a business empire, not babysitting me. I can do both. He did somehow, managing his company while simultaneously making sure Scarlett had everything she needed. He worked from home more often, setting up his laptop in whatever room she occupied so he could keep an eye on her. You know I'm not going to spontaneously combust, right? She said one afternoon. Can't be too careful. I'm pregnant, not made of glass. You're 8 months pregnant with my son. That makes you the most important thing in my life. He said it so matter-of-factly, like it was obvious. So yeah, I'm going to be careful. Scarlett didn't argue after that. 3 weeks before her due date, Victor sent a letter. It arrived at the townhouse in a plain envelope with no return address. Elena brought it to Scarlett while she was in the library, feet propped up on the ottoman because her ankles were swollen. It's from him, Elena said quietly. Do you want me to throw it away? Scarlett looked at the envelope. She could throw it away unopened, pretend it never came, move on with her life and never look back. But she'd spent too long running from difficult things. No, I'll read it. She waited until she was alone, then opened the letter with shaking hands. The handwriting was Victor's, neat, precise, the same writing she'd seen on love notes years ago. Scarlett, I know I have no right to reach out to you, no right to ask for anything, but I'm writing anyway because there are things I need to say. I was wrong about everything. I threw you away because I was a coward who cared more about appearances than people. I told myself it was strategic, that marrying Marianne was the smart business move. But the truth is, I was just scared. Scared of being a father. Scared of disrupting my perfect plan. Scared of choosing love over power. And now I've lost everything. My company, my reputation, my freedom. But the thing that hurts most is knowing I lost you. And I lost our son. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking to be part of your life or his. I know Dante's his father now. And honestly, that's probably for the best. Dante will protect him in ways I never could. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry for all of it, for hurting you, for being selfish, for throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me. I hope you're happy. I hope the baby is healthy. I hope you found the life you deserved, the one I was too stupid to give you. I'm going to prison next week. 3 years. Maybe it'll give me time to figure out how to be a better person. Maybe not. Either way, I won't bother you again. Take care of yourself, Scarlett. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. Victor. She read it twice, then set it down on the side table and stared at nothing. Dante found her there 20 minutes later, still holding the letter. "What's wrong?" he asked. She handed him the letter without a word, watched his face harden as he read. "Do you want me to contact his lawyers?" Dante asked when he finished. "Tell him to leave you alone?" "No, let him send it. It doesn't change anything." "Does it bother you, knowing he regrets it?" Scarlett thought about that, about the girl she'd been 8 months ago, desperate and heartbroken, who would have given anything to hear Victor say he was sorry. "No," she said finally, "because sorry doesn't fix what he broke, and I don't need him to fix it. I already built something better." Dante pulled her close as her belly would allow. "You're sure? No part of you wishes things had gone differently?" "Not even a little." She looked up at him. "If things had gone differently, I wouldn't have this. You, Luca, this life." She touched his face. "I wouldn't trade this for anything." "Good." He kissed her forehead. "Because I'm not letting you go. Ever." Promises, promises. I keep my promises. And he did. Luca Antonio Moretti was born on a Tuesday morning in early spring. Scarlett's water broke at 4 a.m., and Dante drove her to the hospital going 20 miles over the speed limit while she gripped the door handle and tried to remember how to breathe. "You're doing great," he kept saying, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I'm not doing anything yet. This is just the warm-up." "Still, you're great." Labor lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of pain and exhaustion, and Dante holding her hand through all of it, letting her squeeze until she thought she might break his fingers. He didn't complain once. When the contractions got bad, he talked her through them, his voice steady and calm, even though she could see the fear in his eyes. "I can't do this," she gasped at hour 12. "Yes, you can." "I can't. It hurts too much." "You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Just a little longer. He's almost here." When Luca finally arrived, 6 pounds, 8 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and lungs that worked perfectly, the nurse placed him on Scarlett's chest, and she burst into tears. "He's perfect," she whispered, staring down at the tiny face scrunched up and red from crying. Dante stood beside the bed, looking at the baby like he couldn't quite believe he was real. His eyes were wet, which Scarlett had never seen before. "Can I—" His voice cracked. "Hold him, please." She watched Dante take their son carefully, cradling him like he might break. Luca's tiny hand wrapped around Dante's finger, and something shifted in Dante's expression, softened in a way she'd never seen. "Hey, kid," Dante said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm your dad. I know I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to make sure you grow up knowing you're wanted, that you matter." He looked at Scarlett, tears streaming down his face. "That you're loved," Scarlett sobbed, watching them, not caring that the nurse was in the room or that she probably looked like a mess. This moment, this perfect, imperfect moment, was everything. The nurse came in with paperwork a few minutes later. "We need information for the birth certificate." Dante didn't hesitate. "Luca Antonio Moretti, father's name Dante Moretti." The nurse wrote it down, and just like that, it was official. Victor's biological son became Dante's legal son. The baby Victor had rejected now belonged to someone who actually wanted him. Later, when it was just the 3 of them, Scarlett dozing in the hospital bed, Dante in the chair beside her with Luca sleeping on his chest, she thought about how far she'd come. 8 months ago, she'd been broken and alone, making a desperate deal with a dangerous man. Now she had a family. It wasn't the family she'd planned. It wasn't perfect or conventional or anything she'd imagined, but it was hers. And that was enough. The first few weeks with a newborn were harder than Scarlett had expected. Luca cried constantly, slept in 2-hour increments, and seemed to need feeding every 90 minutes. She was exhausted in a way she'd never experienced, functioning on caffeine and sheer willpower. Dante was surprisingly helpful. He changed diapers without complaining, walked the floor with a screaming Luca at 3 in the morning, and figured out the complicated baby carrier system faster than Scarlett did. "You're really good at this," she told him one night, watching him rock Luca back to sleep. "I'm winging it." "We both are, but you're a natural." "I don't know about that. I just don't want to screw him up." "You won't." "How do you know?" "Because you care. That's more than some fathers do." She didn't say Victor's name, but they both thought it. When Luca was 6 weeks old, Nina came to visit. She held the baby and cried, telling Scarlett how proud she was, how far she'd come, how happy she seemed. "You look different," Nina said. "Tired, but happy? Like you finally found where you belong." "I did," Scarlett said, looking at Dante across the room where he was making bottles in the kitchen. "I really did." "I'm glad. You deserve this." "So do you. How's the dating going?" "Terrible. But I'm working on it." Nina bounced Luca gently. "This little guy is lucky. He's got 2 parents who would do anything for him. 3, if you count his amazing godmother." Nina's eyes went wide. "You want me to be his godmother?" "Of course. Who else would I ask?" Nina hugged her tight, careful not to squish the baby between them. "I love you. You know that?" "I know. I love you too." It was Nina who brought up Victor first, months later when Luca was sleeping through the night and Scarlett had finally caught up on rest. "Did you hear he got out early?" Nina asked over coffee. Scarlett's stomach clenched. "No. When?" "Last month. Good behavior or something. I just thought you should know." "Is he back in the city?" "I don't think so. I heard he's upstate somewhere, working for some nonprofit." Scarlett absorbed this information. Victor was out, free, living his life somewhere she couldn't see. "Does that bother you?" Nina asked. "No, I mean, I'm glad he's trying to do better, but it doesn't change anything for me." "Good, because you've built something amazing here. Don't let him take up space in your head." She was right. Scarlett had built something amazing. A life she loved with a man who loved her back and a son who was healthy and happy. Victor was part of her past, but he wasn't part of her future. And that was exactly how it should be. 6 months after Luca was born, Dante came home with an announcement. "I'm starting a foundation," he said over dinner while Luca babbled in his high chair. "A foundation for what?" "For single mothers who need support. Job training, childcare, legal help, housing assistance. Everything you needed and didn't have." Scarlett stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. I've been working on it for months with my lawyers. I wanted to wait until everything was set up before I told you." He reached across the table for her hand. "You're going to run it, if you want." "Run it?" "You know what it's like to be desperate and alone. You know what those women need. Who better to help them?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "That's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever done for me." "Then say yes." "Yes, of course yes." The Moretti Foundation launched 3 months later. They started small, 1 office, a handful of staff, a limited budget, but word spread quickly. Women started coming through their doors, looking for help, finding hope. Scarlett interviewed every applicant personally. She heard their stories, stories that sounded like her own. Women abandoned by partners, left with nothing, trying to figure out how to survive while protecting their children. She helped them all. Job training programs, childcare subsidies, legal representation, housing assistance. Whatever they needed, the foundation provided. Within a year, they'd helped over 200 women. Within 2 years, they had 3 locations across the city and plans for more. Dante funded it all without question, never asking about budgets or numbers. He just wanted to help, wanted to turn his wealth into something that mattered. "You've changed me," he told Scarlett one night after they'd put Luca to bed. "How?" "I used to think power was about winning. about destroying your enemies and proving you were stronger. He pulled her close. But you showed me that real power is about protecting people, about building something that lasts. I didn't show you that. You figured it out yourself. Maybe, but I wouldn't have figured it out without you. She kissed him, and they stood there in the quiet hallway of their home. Two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances and built something beautiful anyway. A year and a half after Luca was born, Dante proposed. Scarlett laughed. We're already married. I know, but that was just paperwork. This is real. He got down on one knee in their library where they'd spent so many nights talking and pulled out a ring box. I want to do this right. I want to marry you for real, Scarlett. Not because of revenge or protection or any strategic reason, just because I love you and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. She was crying before he finished talking. Yes, of course, yes. They had a real wedding this time, not a rushed courthouse ceremony or a business transaction. A real wedding with Scarlett in a dress she actually chose, and Dante in a tuxedo, and Luca, 15 months old and walking, being carried down the aisle by Nina. It was small, just close friends, and Elena and the few people who actually mattered. No press, no society pages, no performance. Just two people choosing each other for real this time. When the officiant asked if Dante took Scarlett to be his wife, he said, I already did, but yeah, I do. Again. And I'll keep doing it every day for the rest of my life. Everyone laughed through their tears. When Scarlett said her vows, she looked Dante in the eye and said, You saved me when I had nothing. You gave me a home when I was lost. You became a father to my son when his real father walked away. You showed me that love doesn't have to be perfect to be real, that sometimes the best things come from the worst moments, that family isn't always blood, sometimes it's choice. Her voice cracked. I love you, and I choose you, today and every day after. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. At the reception, held in the townhouse garden that Elena had transformed into something magical, Scarlett danced with Dante while Nina chased a giggling Luca around the lawn. Happy? Dante asked. Deliriously. Good, because I have another surprise. What kind of surprise? I bought the building next to the foundation's main office. Figured you could use more space. Scarlett laughed. You can't just keep buying me buildings. Watch me. He spun her gently. I'm proud of what you've built. What we've built together. Me too. She looked around at the people gathered in their garden. Nina holding Luca, who was trying to eat a flower. Elena wiping tears from her eyes. The handful of women from the foundation who'd become friends, who'd found their way back to stable lives through the program Scarlett ran. This was her life now, not the one she'd planned with Victor, full of superficial glamour and empty promises. This was real, messy and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. 3 years after Luca was born, Scarlett saw Victor one last time. She was at a charity event downtown, a fundraiser for formerly incarcerated people trying to rebuild their lives. The foundation had donated, and Scarlett was there to speak about second chances and the importance of support systems. She was talking to one of the organizers when she saw him across the room. Victor looked different, thinner, older, with gray at his temples. He wore a simple suit, nothing like the expensive designer clothes he used to favor. He was talking to a small group, gesturing with his hands, looking more animated than she'd seen him in years. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Victor excused himself from his conversation and walked over. Scarlett. His voice was quiet, careful. Victor, I didn't know you'd be here. I could say the same. I work with the organization now, helping people transition back after prison. He looked uncomfortable. It's good work. I'm glad you found something meaningful. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Victor said, You look happy. I am. Good. You deserve it. He glanced at her left hand where she wore both wedding rings, the original platinum band and the new one Dante had given her at their real wedding. How's your son? He's wonderful, smart, funny, gets into everything. And Dante? Good. We're good. Victor nodded. I'm glad. I mean that. He took a breath. I owe you an apology. A real one, not just a letter. For everything I did. For being a coward. For throwing you away when you needed me most. I got your letter. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry. And I'm trying to be better, to actually help people instead of just using them. Scarlett looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something different than the cold, calculating man who'd discarded her. She saw someone broken who was trying to put himself back together. I forgive you, she said quietly. Victor's eyes widened. You do? Yeah, not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger was making me sick. And I have too much good in my life now to waste time being bitter. Thank you, he whispered. That's more than I deserve. Probably. But we all deserve second chances. She touched his arm briefly. I hope you find what you're looking for, Victor. I really do. I hope I can be half as strong as you turned out to be. She smiled sadly. You can be. You just have to choose to be. Dante appeared at her elbow then, his hand settling protectively on her waist. He nodded at Victor, his expression neutral. Langford. Moretti. Victor looked between them. Take care of her. I plan to. Victor walked away, disappearing back into the crowd, and Scarlett leaned into Dante's warmth. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I am. Did you mean it? About forgiving him? I did. Not for him. For me. She looked up at her husband. I don't want to carry that weight anymore. I want to be free of it. Then you are. He kissed the top of her head. Let's go home. They collected their coats and headed out into the cool evening air. As they drove through the city, past the places where Scarlett's old life had existed, past the coffee shop where she'd met Victor for the last time, past the building where she'd once lived in that sterile apartment he'd paid for, she thought about how far she'd come, about the girl who'd been thrown away and the woman she'd become, about the revenge she'd thought she wanted and the forgiveness she'd needed instead, about the fact that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing. The car pulled up to the townhouse, where lights glowed warm in the windows, and she could see Nina through the glass, playing with Luca in the living room. Home. You coming? Dante asked, already halfway out of the car. Yes, say, Scarlett smiled. I'm coming. She took his hand and they walked inside together, leaving the past where it belonged, behind them. Because the future was waiting, and it was better than anything revenge could have given her. It was love. Real, messy, imperfect love. And she wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.